Good morning, everyone. Welcome to what is going to be Thursday's preview for the Cheltenham Festival. Day 3, when we're sort of halfway through the week. It seems a bit weird sort of talking about day 3 when we only had day 1, which was all right for me from a betting perspective. First tier races were neither sort of in or there. I chucked a few daft bets around trying to get the favourites beat and didn't. Shane Blue Law didn't stand up really in the Supreme. He didn't deserve that fall. It was a strange fall actually. Sort of jumped the flat all right, then just knuckled over. Appreciate it was very, very good though. Very good indeed. Vintage Clouds did us proud in the Ultima. I suspected it was that sort of a race that there weren't many you could give a chance to. Milan native and Vintage Clouds were my two against the race, and that was yesterday's great result really, and it sort of set me up for the next couple of days. A very impressive honeysuckle in the champion hurdle. My each way on Roxana just about landed, although she was in the mares, although she was flat out from a long way out. I worried a little bit about Harry Skelton's yesterday. They were a lot. I don't know whether, but be interested to see what happens today with them. But I would just wonder now whether they've already run the races before they get here. All Mankind never looked happy yesterday. I know he got took on, but he was flat out from halfway, and the in-running boys knew it as well. He was at sort of 3 times his SP before halfway, and similarly Roxana, she looked flat out from 3 out. I don't know, we'll see, could be wrong. And then an 80 to 1 winner towards the end of the day. For those of you that read the punting pointers, I did a bit of fact digging on the SPs at the Cheltenham Festival and how the industry SP that's come in since June the 1st last year has affected things, and we're getting far more bigger price winners now than we were doing under the old SP system. It's as tight as 2 coats of paint at the front. If you are a favourite backer or a second favourite backer, you're getting worse value under the industry SP. But if you like backing outsiders like me, this is a golden era for you. We've had more outsiders since June the 1st through to sort of present day than we did in the previous 12 months. So in less time, we've had more outsiders, more sort of 40 to 1 plus winners than we have in the previous 12 months in a shorter space of time. So I'd sort of put that up as a one of the specials, and of course that's an 80 to 1 winner, and that's dropped already. So that was a 2 to 1 chance for the week. So that's put a bit more in the bank too. So we're going to day 2. Normally I'm behind after day 1, so I'm not normally chasing by this point. So I'll go into day 2 with a bit of hope. Anyway, it's day 3 we're looking at. We'll crack on. The marsh from a betting perspective, it looks all right because you've got the dead 8, but I've got half a feeling someone's going to come out here with the ground drying up. And do I want to take on Valère on? I don't think I do. It's been interesting to sort of hear Henry de Bromhead sort of using words like quirky now with the horse. We've always been sort of led to believe he's very straightforward, sort all this, and sort of, that's what sort of made me want to take it on a little bit. But no, I don't really want to take it on. I think I'm happy to leave the marsh alone and just watch, to be perfectly honest, and concentrate on the bigger handicaps tomorrow. One of those, of course, is the Potemps at 155. Again, the handicaps this week. It's interesting because I listened to. I was on the call when the weights was coming out and listening to the official handicappers and what they thought would be the bottom weights required to get into these contests. And they're absolutely miles out this year. They're way out. They're sort of thinking, 133, 134 would get into this. You're going to be in off 126. And this isn't the only race, Later on, there's a contest tomorrow where something rated 122's got in. The handicaps this year are not strong. With that, there are 2 or 3 in here. I think Imperial Alcazar is by far and away the most likely winner. I've been writing him up since Warwick. He was so impressive that day. He looked really well in the paddock before. He had a good blow afterwards as well, interestingly, at Warwick, as if there was still some more to come from him. So I think he's by far and away the most likely winner in, as I say, what is not a particularly strong event. I think if you're looking for a win-only bet, Imperial Alcazar, absolutely fine. If you're looking to throw some darts at bigger prices, I would suggest the following. Get Around is interesting. First run for Laura Young. Now then, Laura hadn't had a runner for about a year until Alan Verbal came out at Taunton last month, was it? Yeah, end of last month, and won at a massive price with Mitch Bastian on board. Now, Mitch rides a lot for Johnny Farrelly, and Laura and Johnny Farrelly aren't too far apart. I was sort of trying to put 2 and 2 together, and I think I might have made 4. And interestingly, this was a move from Ella Pickard to Laura Young. Brian Carver keeps the ride. Cheek Piece has gone for the first time. Good ground as well. The more it dries, the better the chance for get around. And I do think that defeat of Asker Honeybee, who will be going for the Albert Bartlett, has been overlooked a little bit. He's been left on the same mark. I don't think he's badly handicapped. He'll stay. Good ground will suit. You'll get 50, 66 tomorrow with the extra places. I think he's one you can consider. Going further down, have a look as well. At Kansas City Chief. He's as old as the hills, bless him, but at Cheltenham he comes alive. He runs his race here. He was 6th in this off a mark of 133 last year with Tom Scudamore on board. He's £7 lower than that to tomorrow, at 126. Millie Wallocott's taking another 5 off, takes him down effectively 121. He's on a really low mark. He ran 30th to Honest Vic in the qualifier for this in October, and again he just really sticks to his guns up this hill. He comes alive here. The fact that Vintage Clouds at the age of 11, after having about 4 goes at the Ultima, finally won yesterday. Perhaps this is the new thing. Old horses coming back and then having another go at handicaps that they've tried before. He'll run his race. You'll get 3 figures tomorrow, and he'll run his race. And if you can get 6, 7 places, honestly, you could get a run for your money there with Kansas City Chief. I don't think he's a forlorn hope of netting you some each way cash. The Ryanair again, much like the first. I'm going to end up having a couple of quid on Fanny and Destraval, simply because if Fanny and Destraval wins, I'm going to be throwing things at the telly. Any of you that read the Daily Punt stuff will know that at the beginning of the season I thought Fanny and Destraval might be a champion chase horse. I had this gut feeling from when he won at Newbury back in 2019, and Venetia could barely disguise the fact that she thought he was, at least a graded animal. And the fact that he's been tried in Grade 1, Grade 2 this year only sort of enhances that. He clearly finds 2 miles just a bit on the sharp side for him. But, his run against First Flow at Ascot was really good. And he got beat 9 lengths, and he was, alongside, waiting patiently at the finish and just behind Paletta Logue. So, it's there. He's got the form in the locker. It's whether he wants 2.5. It'll just be a fun bet. It won't be a big bet at all. But that aside, I think this is a hard contest. I made the case for Real Steel as well, for those of you that like sort of back to lay something in running. He didn't get the Gold Cup trip last year, but he was traded about 2 to 1, 2 out when he's come looming large on the outside before he didn't get up the hill. This is probably his trip. Has probably been what they've laid him out for all season. That's not to say he can win it. Well, not to say he's good enough, but I think if you're looking for something in running that you can back to lay off, then probably Real Steel is your horse, but not a strong one for me. Stayers at 305. Paisley Park is the most likely winner, I think. Been there, done that, and got himself the t-shirt a couple of times. I am on Lisnagar Oscar at 20s each way after his run at Haydock, where I was there that day. I wrote him in the Daily Punt afterwards. I didn't think he was entirely fit. I definitely thought he needed the run. Connections could not have been any happier with the run afterwards. They were leaping around and hugging each other and high-fiving and whatnot. You'd think they'd won the thing. They were absolutely delighted to see that the wind up had worked and that he was back to his old self. He stuck on all the way to the line that day against third wind after looking like he was going to get tired. That was a good blowout for him. Speed figure was really good for that race too. I know speed figures and 3 mile hurdles aren't always a marriage made in heaven, but nevertheless that was as good a run as he's ever put together. I think he'll give you a good run for your money each way. And he's still a reasonable price. I think 10 to 1. I'd have him in front of Indication, and I'd have him in front of Florian Porter any day of the week here. I really would. So I think each way there's still a bit of value to be squeezed out of Lisnagar Oscar. Paddy Power Plate. I ought to like this race. And I'm going to stick with an old friend. I'm slightly worried about the track, but Paddy's Poems jumping this year has been superb. That was his issue as a novice. He was a novice, so fair. He's learning. But I always thought to myself he was a bit clumsy, and I thought he's not really learning here from run to run to run. It wasn't sinking in, and he was making the same mistakes. He hasn't made those mistakes this year. He's jumped round Sandown 3 times, nearly without blemish. There's been 2 sort of half mistakes. But when he was up to 2 mile at Wincanton on good ground last time, he looked a different horse. He just travelled like the best horse. He jumped like the best horse and he powered away. And that wasn't a bad race. He's only got the penalty to carry for that. And I think they're unlucky here because he was off 133 at Wincanton. And I reckon they thought they needed the penalty to get in to this, which normally they would have done. As it turned out, 133 they would have got in. It's whether the track suits. That's the question. But you're getting 25 to 1 for your money. And if they can find some room with him, I think that's key. I think James Davies needs to get him some space. And if he does that, he'll jump well again. And I think you've got every chance with Paddy's Power. I know from speaking to Rory this morning, he's made the case again for Cool Cody, who's probably still a fair price too, 25 to 1 for a Paddy Power winner, looks big. Happy Diva goes here instead of the mare, she can be given a chance. That's a Huntsman's Son 40s, you know, he looked really good first time up at Wetherby before disappointing here in December, but I don't think the soft ground was with him that day. Better ground will suit Huntsman's Son as well, and you know, he looks big. It's that sort of a race again where I'm going to end up just sort of chucking a few darts, small at bigger prices. I think, you know, one of them hits, but it's not a get stuck into race. Mares Novice, pass, no interest, don't care. I say don't care. Listen, if Perfect Myth keeps drifting out to stupid prices, 6,600 tomorrow, I may have a little bit each one Perfect Myth because again, she's the one that probably wants the ground to keep drying up. And she threw in, she's earned her mark of 140. Some of these, you know, they beat each other, these novices, and they go to inflated marks. Whereas Perfect Myth has earned her mark because she's running in a couple of handicaps as well, particularly the one at Wincanton, which was really competitive. The one that the White Mouse won, if you sort of cast your mind back to last November, that was ultra competitive. And she carried a ton of weight that day, and she was giving the winner over a stone. So she's earned her mark of 140. I know it's not a handicap, but I'm just sort of pointing out, you know, she is a 140 horse as opposed to 1 or 2 of these who have got their marks from beating each other, etc, etc. If she keeps drifting out, I might get interested in her with Harry Skelton. Harry Skelton on board. Bryony rides Martello Sky for Lucy Wadham. She normally rides, and obviously she's got a riding arrangement with Lucy. But I don't think Harry Skelton taking over is any bad thing. So I think if she kept drifting, she might be an interest bet. But she's got to keep drifting. I wouldn't take 33s. And then the Kim Yer, where, you know, again, as I say, bottom in here is 122. It's not a good race. It's not strong. And really, the more I looked at this race, you know, the more I've got 2 against the field. Storm Control, who I went and bet for this a bigger price than the 16s after it didn't get declared for the Ultima. I think this is the right race for Storm Legend. Was impressive around here a couple of times last winter and nearly idled it away against Potter's Legend here in December, but he won that actually with loads in hand as it turned out. As he heard the thundering hooves up behind him, he picked up and found a bit more again. This is the right race for him, and if Richard Patrick can get him off in front, he might be hard to catch. But, you know, at the prices, I'm amazed that you can still get 10 to 1 about Shantou Flyer because his Cheltenham record stands up to the closest of scrutiny. You've only got to go back, a couple of seasons to, you know, and he was getting beaten in net by Kustar Sivler in the Ultima off a mark of 152. He's here off 140, and this will be the first time that he's had a jockey on board that isn't David Maxwell, that isn't a conditional or an amateur for some while. So Harry Cobden on board. He's off a mark of 140. I think that's very, very fair. He'll have his ground. His Cheltenham record, as I say, stands up to absolute scrutiny. How he'll not be in the frame if he jumps around, I don't know. So I think 10 to 1 still looks really good value to me. I can see Shantou Fly being well bet tomorrow when people finally sit down at the end of today's race and start looking at the odds and go, how is that price? And I could see him going off half that. So Shantou Fly will be a strong bet for me each way in that last tomorrow. So there you go. Best of luck. I'll be back tomorrow to do Fridays, and I'll also be writing that up as well on the Daily Punt. So best of luck with all your bets today. See you tomorrow morning.